Hello, guys. Welcome to a new trading week. And Jeff with you. Actually, going to be with us in a tick, I believe. I'm hopeful that I can share my screen with you. Looks promising. Actually, looking at the moment at a chart of the UK 100. I thought we'd start there today. And I'm sure Ash has got plenty to say about that when he comes in. The obvious and dramatic picture that we're seeing in front of us there, telling a story of woe for equity markets in general, I think, across the world. And I guess we're going to start asking questions about whether this is the beginning of the big correction that everyone's been expecting for quite some time. Yeah, well, tough answer, tough question to answer, and no doubt we'll be talking about that probably all week. I think if you step aside from the equity markets at the moment, which is very, very difficult to do, we're seeing something a little less dramatic, but nonetheless disturbing, I think, in my humble opinion, certainly in the euro and pound areas, where we've got over the weekend Brexit negotiations breaking down once again, and the market not liking that too much as the markets gapped down this morning. A little bit of a fight back through the Asia session, but a little bit to go as far as I'm concerned. If I'm to get interested in trading these crosses at all today, I think I'm pretty much a sideline spectator until I see something that's a little bit more, I don't know, non-Brexit, if you like, on the euro and the pound. And for that reason, I'll probably be steering away from them a little because I think it's very uncertain as to what might happen in terms of reaction to those events. With regard to the other pairs, versus the dollar, I think we've got remaining issues, of course, with a reaction to equity markets falling all over the world, with trade wars. There's a bit of news about as well. We've got lots of things to consider whilst we're trading this week, and certainly I'll be doing that. From a technical point of view, I think we're pretty much a sideline act on the majors until those things sort themselves out. That said, if I see a lower high here on the Aussie, that would get me interested. I'm on a 1 hour chart there at the moment. But the thing I'm more interested in than anything, I believe, is crosses like these against the yen, as the uncertainty creeps into the market further, and I don't expect that's going to change anytime soon. I would think that crosses like pound yen, for instance, and we saw that certainly on Friday and over the weekend, we've had a gap down. I think that's probably a trajectory that's to be followed. That's the 30-minute chart that I'm looking at. But the daily chart, right at the bottom of this range here, until the gap over the weekend, saw us down at the monthly pivot. This is very, very interesting, of course, but very, very difficult from which to trade unless you just want to take the risk and say, well, okay, everything's in turmoil, the market's gone a little bit crazy. Do we actually just jump in here and take our chances? Well, the answer for me is always going to be no, although I do expect that we're going to see further downside, in particular in pound yen. But as always, I have to see a clear entry, and a clear entry for me is just not there on any of these crosses at the moment, although I am expecting, as I say, to see further yen strength as this uncertainty continues into the market. So that's all going to be very, very interesting, of course. I'll follow Aussie yen this week, I'm sure. And let's have a look at Aussie yen. We'll start there with a little bit of analysis, shall we? On a technical level, you can see once again we've broken clear of this range that we've been in pretty much since the beginning of 2018. I'll just put that in terms of a rectangle so that it's quite clear for everyone to see. I'll probably use that area there. And maybe that area there, you could probably tighten it up to there, but we'll keep it a little bit on the loose side and put it there, eh? So that range has been, as I said, pretty much the year spent, year to date, that has been spent in that area. We broke clear of it in August and then put in what looked to be a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder forming. I don't know that that's still not the case. Obviously, the right shoulder is way deeper than is the left, and that's kind of where we're at currently. Is this forming, or is this going to fall away and take out this low? Is obvious, or the obvious question that I'm asking myself anyway. That's again a very tough question to answer unless you take into consideration the fact that the markets are now, I would say, firmly in turmoil, and I would expect again further strengthening of the yen and therefore weakening perhaps of Aussie yen. I don't really see that from an entry perspective at the moment on the daily chart, but if we dig down just a little bit deeper, let's see what we can find, shall we? Forgetting that daily range for now, this is the right shoulder that I've been talking about, and if I adopt this trend that we've gone into, which is obviously lower highs, lower lows, lower highs. Sorry, okay. Lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs out of consolidation. This is obviously where we've finished up over the weekend, and now we have to make a decision on where we go next. First thing I see is an untested daily pivot, of course, and that's something that attracts me just about every day. The gap here this morning was up, as you can see here. We've begun the week here on the 4-hour chart, and we've closed that very, very quickly. Let me just go to this chart here. So we've opened this morning with that gap, which has closed. We've now got consolidation happening in spades. We've got an untested daily pivot, which is very close to the weekly pivot. So my thought process is I'm expecting more yen strength, and I'd probably like to see a bounce off these pivots. So to trade that is going to be very, very interesting. I don't know that I can trade it to the pivot area. I don't see an opportunity to do that as yet. Put a couple of lines on here that may help us a little bit. So apart from this resistance, we've got this area here that's going to take a long time to get there. So we'd have to be patient people to find an entry off that line. This one here is probably far more obvious. But you can see what's going on here. We're firmly in a wedge pattern, and the pivots are very much the star of the show. I don't expect that to change anytime soon on a normal day, but this could very easily break down. And if it does break down, then we've probably got almost a setup here to trade it. But the issue is we're trading straight into support here. So if I was to trade straight short at this point in time, the support level is just going to smash me, and I can't do that. So I'm going to have to wait for this to get up to this daily pivot, I think. And if that's the case, well, why not go to the next level and hit this trend line, and then look to play a bounce off that and go short. So I think that's where I'm probably at as far as Aussie yen's concerned. As I hear Ash in the background. G'day, mate.
Hi, yeah. Sorry, how you doing? All right.
Yeah, I'm going okay.
Quickly shoot in, mate. I've got a couple of trades that I have entered. So let me show you guys my screen. Okay. Right then, I have entered a couple of trades in. I want to get rid of that. Oh, where's that gone now? Hold on. Hold on, let me just take these away just so they're not so distracting, because you
Can I
don't
see
need
your
them on.
screen, man? I can't see your screen for some reason.
Oh, you can't. Sorry. Okay. 1 second. 1 second. I've just got some things here that I need to. There we go. Right. There we go. Right. Here we go. Here's my screen. Okay. So a couple of trades. There we go. I have taken a trade in the Aussie Kiwi, so I'm looking for Aussie downside against the Kiwi. I don't particularly love this cross because of it, it reminds me a little bit of the Euro Swissy. So I'm not that keen on it, but this is on a 4-hour chart. This is where I've entered it on a 4-hour chart, and what I've been looking for. There is a little breakdown of a trend line there. Not amazing, because it really needs to break down here, but this is quite a critical point here that it needs to break down. And there is obviously the previous resistance point that was support at that point. So it's tested that area and it's failed. Now really, the entry it could well be, if you're just going to trade on 4-hour bars, you can just trade on the low of this particular bar here. So what would it be? 1, 2, 3, 4 back. So if it breaks that low, but that kind of would have triggered you anyway. So let me give you the levels, and then you can figure out what you guys want to do. We can work out the trade a bit later on. So it's one spot 09257 for the entry, and one spot 09587 for the stop. And our first target is down at one spot 08706. So that's the first one. And the second one is CAD Swiss, which I know is going in the opposite direction right now, but it's actually a really nice trade. I think it's a really nice trade, and it might end up needing to test this level. Fine, keep us well and truly out of trouble. And with this one, again, level of resistance here, trend line here. I'm looking for the for the 4-hour trend to the downside to continue from somewhere in this area. I have got my entry at 0.75966, and my stop is 0.76401 with a first take profit at 0.74928. So that is that's the trade. Now we can go into a little bit more reasoning with that, because the way I like to do it is I will start on a 4-hour. Let's talk about the Aussie Kiwi first. Is this okay for you, Jeff?
Yeah, mate, all good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Aussie. Great. So the Aussie Kiwi first. Now, so the reasons for this, reason for it, and then my entry really comes off this hourly, where I kind of see the hourly trend line break down here. So it's looking pretty good. Actually, a little head and shoulders patterns going on here. So this looks pretty good for a breakdown. So I'm looking for my hourly just for that little bit of I suppose better timing. It's sometimes that works out to your benefit, sometimes it doesn't. But if you look for a bar to break down on the 4-hourly, so we got our bar to break down on the 4-hourly, but I've just mined in a little bit further and seen if I've got a 1-hour trend. So that's the reason for entering the Aussie Kiwi. Now the CAD Swiss actually hasn't really played ball, because my breakdown on the CAD Swiss was actually this this point here, and it's triggered me in, but not continue to the downside. But that's fine, because we're on a 4-hour time frame, so it might meander around here for a little while. Might take me out, might end up going lower. So they are just a couple of trades to look at. Now the other one. Have you covered the pound yet this morning, Jeff?
Mentioned it, but I haven't gone into it.
Okay, so the pound's going to be a fascinating story today, because there was talk over the weekend of Theresa May's Chequer deal again being in tatters, and the reason that the pound rallied so significantly over the last week was because there was speculation that that the European Union was ready to kind of put the deal through for Theresa May. But that is looking less likely now. So again, if we're going to our 4-hour, then we can see the gap down this morning, which is quite significant. We've got a trend line here as well. So I'm looking for it to kind of get up to this level before looking for trades to the downside. So I'm looking for one spot 31.35 area. So when that area gets hit, and signals of weakness, and if I get those signs and signals of weakness, I think we've got a fundamental reason now to also potentially break down for the pound to break down. So I'm also looking for that. So there's a couple of things that I quite like, but that would be another one with a pound. Now whether that helps the FTSE, I don't know, because the FTSE has obviously been in a
waterfall
move. Yeah, it's been, as you say, in a kind of waterfall effect to the downside, and that means that it's going to be a lot more tricky to trade that than not. So I'm going to remove this because I don't like this on my 30-minute chart. So we'll see whether that actually comes to fruition. But let's have a quick look at it, because the FTSE is in a little pattern, in a holding pattern here. The problem with this, I mean, there's no doubt that that we could attempt to trade this to the upside from this low, and in a way I quite like it because of the price action with the pound. You know, it might actually be quite a good trade for us to kind of try and trade this down here, but the issue with it is that that this is the move, and all that's likely to happen in the first instance is this gets swallowed up. But what is starting to get interesting here is the pattern we have. You know, we do have this symmetrical triangle, so we could try and pick it up down here and see if it goes through and ride it a little bit further, which I'll probably try and do. Or we could wait for the break. Waiting for the break is safer, but it's obviously not as lucrative. So I think waiting for this to see what's going to happen would be might be wise counsel. Or do we move on? Do you want to move on to any news or anything?
I haven't really looked at the news. I was just mentioning that I'm a fan of the yen at the moment. I think there's a fair bit of uncertainty around the place. I think that the questions are now going to be starting to be asked. Is this the beginning of the big correction we've all been waiting for?
Yeah.
Is contagion going to set in? All of these questions yet to be unanswered or yet to be answered. And I think the uncertainty in the market is going to put things like gold, things like the yen, things like the Swissy, all under the microscope. And I see some money flowing in those directions, to be fair. We've seen that in gold over the weekend or last Friday, whenever it was, that just took off. In fact, it was Thursday.
Yeah.
That just,
That's it. The other one. How about the euro this morning? Because the euro looks kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, look, again, it's tough to say what fundamentals are going to be at play here. If I'm looking from a technical point of view, I really want to trade Friday's 4-hour bar. That was a big rejection of the weekly pivot. But then again, I've got this Brexit breakdown. I've got equity markets in free fall. We've still got trade wars going on. We've got Brexit over. There's all sorts of things to consider there as well.
Yeah.
So I've got absolutely no confidence in a Monday market telling me, being tradable. To be fair, I'm a spectator at the moment, and I think I'll be staying that way until something becomes clear here. Because I think the markets could open in very, very interesting fashion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'd say the other one that I find of interest as well is the Aussie CAD. Aussie CAD is it's on a really nice trend to the upside, and we just had a little pullback. Look at that trend line. just there. It's right on top of that trend line there, and it looks to me that that this one actually also could get some juice. I think we could see some weakness coming in with a CAD. So this is another one that I really like. I really like this one. The setup isn't great as yet. You know, if I'm thinking about this again on an hourly chart, the hourly chart is kind of it's really trending to the downside right now. We got the trending to the downside, a little bit sloppy as well. You know, it hasn't traced nice and gently for us to get to. You know, that trend line is really steep. So so we can't really do anything with that. But it looks like a little range here that that it's just attempting to break through, and I think that could be of interest as well. In actual fact, it looks like it has. Yeah.
Interestingly, oil came off a fair bit late. Actually, it was pretty much all week. Oil came off last week, but certainly on Thursday and Friday, or Wednesday and Thursday, it had a big crash. Closed below the monthly pivot and failed to close above it. It has gapped above the monthly pivot today, oil, but you would be expecting that, to come back down. I would have thought so. That
so we could be looking at some weakness in the CAD.
Yeah.
Which would help my CAD Swiss out actually, but we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Well, it should help that one out as well, I would have thought.
Yeah, it should do, shouldn't it? Yeah, the that is a chart of interest. I think the is also quite interesting. Aussie actually doesn't look too bad today, does it? Looking at this though,
on the last little bit,
the now trend sloppy.
It's now very, very close to testing the daily pivot, and that's the area that I'm interested in. As I say, there may be a lower high there that gives us a nice follow-up, and I'll go through that when we come to my charts again.
Yeah, well, let's go back to your charts. So I'm just having a little scan. So let's have a look through your charts. So we got got a couple of trades on. So let's see what you got.
All right, Matt, coming my way. There we go. Let's stick with the Aussie whilst we're there. I'm on an hourly chart at the moment as we get close to that daily pivot. And what I see here is early stages of a range forming, but we're there. And we're coming off the top, little false break of that range there on Friday, and then a big bearish engulfing bar. And here's where I'm looking for that lower high off the daily pivot. So a rejection bar here would get me interested on an hourly chart basis. If I look at the 4-hour chart, that could also develop there as well. And the same thing, you know, big bearish engulfing bar at a resistance level. That resistance level is fairly decent. If you look over in this area here, it's been support a couple of times in recency. So I think a lower high here does get me interested on the Aussie. And I'll be looking for that on both the intraday and longer term timeframes as we go into the day. Let's go back to the euro, and we're in a very, very similar position here, but not so much on top of a range, in my humble opinion anyway. This was this was trending very, very strongly to the upside, as we've discussed earlier, for the last last week, basically, I suppose you could say. And then came straight back down to the weekly pivot. But that's a beautiful bar to trade. Absolutely beautiful if you're looking to trade long here and follow trends.
Yeah, completely agree, mate. What you mean, taking the high of that bar?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
I completely agree.
But I'm completely flabbergasted. Well, not so much flabbergasted, but I'm cautious in the extreme because of what's happened over the weekend, because of the Brexit breakdowns, and I just want to see what the market, or how the market handles that when it does open, before I go and put my foot into anything. But big bullish engulfing bar on the hourly chart, which is representative of that that big hammer that we saw. This is the interesting area, and I think we might see a little bit of oscillation in here between the daily pivot and the weekly pivot, whilst the market actually makes up its mind what that means, or we're just going to get a break here very, very rapidly as soon as the market does open. So I'm just a little bit wary on that. Otherwise, technically, yeah, I think it's a great area to find that long.
Yeah.
Fibbo
Yeah,
fans
I like that.
might be interested in that as well. I don't know where that's hit. It's around about the 38 mark. Maybe a bit above. Maybe it's missing it a bit. Something I find interesting anyway. The other part of that is, and this is subsequent to the Brexit situation, I see this big bearish engulfing bar as well. And I'm very aware that the daily pivot could throw this south. I don't know that I'm going to get the opportunity to trade that. So that's, the reason I'm just a little bit cautious. The same that I'm looking for on the Aussie may well develop on the euro as well as that lower high. We're still in this long from, when did we trade that? Can't remember now. Was it last Tuesday or Wednesday? Might have been Monday even. Stops are underneath the weekly pivot. We're trading this for free, of course, and I don't see any reason to change anything. I think the market will tell me very, very early in the piece what's going to happen here, and if that's to be a big reaction to Brexit failed negotiations, then we're going to get stopped out here, or our trailing stop's going to get hit. But it's still at a reasonable support level, and if the market is still in this frame of mind, then the trade that I'm already in is looking good.
I really like that trade.
Yeah, I'm still of absolutely mixed emotions as I go into the session today. I've absolutely got no fixed firm opinion because of this situation with Brexit and the fact that we've got an equity market situation that's in a bit of turmoil at the moment. So I'm just going to wait, as I said before. If I get obvious signals, then I'll look to trade them. But until that happens, not for me. Now, the pound that I haven't really spoken about, noticed, of course, that the big gap down was there. What I think I'd really like to see is price come up to the weekly pivot and give me some sort of indication as to what's going to happen there. I go back to these three bars here, and I've been harping about them for a long, long time. That's a very, very bearish signal, and it's yet to play out, but it's also getting to the point where it may be cancelled or counteracted or counterproductive, because if this high gets taken out, then they're pretty much out of play. But whilst they're still there, I'm still seeing the possibility of downside here. I think Brexit negotiations won't, or the failing of them won't be hurting that situation. This candle here has been almost matched, and we said last week we couldn't see how this level wouldn't be tested. I got to say that it's probably fallen a little bit short of where I expected it to be. I actually expected it to put in a new high. It hasn't done that, and that's interesting in itself, because this is a very, very strong signal that something is to come, and that's downside for me. Maybe this is the lower high on that first move. This is the weekly chart I'm looking at, so it's fairly substantial in terms of its strength. The one thing that counteracts that is price action since, and we've had high test bar, low test bar, spinning top. What's this one to be? Pretty much guesswork. But I'm thinking this is potentially the lower high that's going to match this reversal bar. So that's what I'm seeing technically. If I go to the daily chart, there I see this big bearish engulfing bar, which is interesting that we gapped on Friday, and we've gapped again on or over the weekend. So there's real concern here, by the look of this, that the market is in a little bit of turmoil, and I see this as very, very bearish, to be fair. I don't like where price is at the moment. That's my issue, because I've got to see it come back to here. Probably at least close the gap if I'm to get interested today. I would have thought, and I've got this feeling that I may miss the boat, to be fair. But I'll be looking at the smaller time frames in an effort. Have you got anything at the open, mate? By the way.
No, the FTSE's taken off the open, which is kind of what I want to see if I'm going to take this long. But I want some confirmation that we are getting through some levels before I enter. But looking for a long in the FTSE 100. But and we may not get the opportunity to get on board. It's been so beaten up. We might actually see a reaction which is so emotive that it's impossible to jump on. But let's wait for a nice technical setup and see if we can get on it. But I like it. I like what I'm seeing so far with the FTSE 100. But no. Nothing to do as yet. Possibly in the next 10 minutes or so. We'll see.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't trade the first 30-minute bar of the session, so I'm not trading anything at the moment. So I'll just continue to give you my opinion and analysis.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I see this weekly pivot as I won't say a fait accompli, but I see this as absolutely the necessary level for me to get interested. Until that happens, which would close the gap pretty much, I'm really not interested here. I'm seeing everything on the chart that indicates to me further downside, but until I get that gap closed, I don't think I can get interested. So I want to see this move attempted at least to be negated by price. And if I see that, and then I see a failure of that, that's the signal for me to go short, and that's the mentality that I'm going in here with. I've got to see this attempt fail.
Right. So you wanted to get to that that weekly pivot first.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'd be on the same page with you on that. I think it would be far too excitable to kind of try and get in before we see that, because that's the obvious area, isn't it? I mean, when we see, look how many times there's a gap on that chart, and this is a rare occurrence, isn't it? And that's the reason that I think this particular move might be kind of unlikely, or maybe even dangerous to get on board with, because it could gap and go, couldn't it? Here
could absolutely easily do that, and that's what I need to see. I need to see an attempt at least from the Bulls, to get back into the game here, and then I like to see it fail. And as soon as I see that failure, after we've tested this level, then that's the time to go for me.
Yeah,
but not before.
Yeah,
too dangerous. But yes, I'm reasonably bearish to cross. I'd have to say that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of weight.
Well, so you see that what they were trying to get the divorce agreement passed by the summit tomorrow. They're trying to sign it off today and get it passed tomorrow. But I think because that's failed so miserably, then we are likely to see some downside. I don't know how significant that's going to be, but we are likely to see some downside with the FTSE.
Well, with the pound, we've probably seen.
Sorry, with the pound. Sorry.
Yeah, with the pound, we've probably seen that. We've probably already seen the initial reaction, and the market now, as you can see, the gap is trying to close. So
yeah, it's just jittery, though, isn't it? The move to the upside. Do you know the other thing about that? I think that weekly pivot is the trend line. I'd like to see when you kind of go into a 4-hour chart, I'd like to see that that trend line get close as well. The lower line there, yeah. Now that's going to give us quite a nice confluence area, isn't it? If it kind of spikes up a little bit. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that move into that level. Did you say you pulled up a fib on this as well? What does a fib tell us? Yeah, look at the fib. The fib's a cracker as well. No, I was actually thinking from the high. Yeah, from the high to potential, for the lowest point so far, and that drags us right back to that pivot on a 38% retracement, which is I think is the most is the cleanest fib. When you're looking at a trend, it's a really nice retracement. It's a decent retracement, and it usually would mean that we get a decent drop after that. So I'm really liking that.
Yeah, it's bang on, isn't it?
Mm.
So it's set up nicely for it. Let's hope we get the opportunity to trade it. That's
the thing. That's what I'm looking at with the FTSE. FTSE's taken off. It's managed to close above a few levels here, but the same, mate. I'm looking to see whether is there an opportunity to trade this, and right now there's not. But we've got a daily pivot coming up fairly soon, so I'm hoping it's going to get shoved down by DP time, and then we can actually take it in the area that we want.
So that area is going to be the trend line?
No, this is. Oh, you're looking at the FTSE. No, what for the pound?
No, for the FTSE.
Well, the FTSE, yeah. So when I look back at the FTSE here, what I've got is the symmetrical triangle going on down here. But then when we look at some of these shorter term timeframes here, then yes, this level here needs to be taken out and closed above, which is happening. There's a daily pivot sat in around about this area here. It's somewhere in that area there. So that's suggesting that that we might well have some further downs, some further struggles here to get through. And that would be of use, because really what I'm looking for is a bounce from the daily pivot back down again. And yeah, I'm quite happy to trade this trend line as long as it pops back down again. I'd be quite happy to take that, but it's difficult because it's Monday morning. We've had 2 weeks of selling off in the FTSE 100. Bounces are more and more likely when you kind of get that, and those bounces can be aggressive and extreme. So it may not be the case that we get on board today, but when the market settles down, we will get an opportunity, and I suspect we're probably going to try and push now, because what I'd like to look for with the FTSE is the overall picture of trying to get back into this area here, around about the 72.12 area. I'd really like the market to attempt to try and get back up there, because that's our monthly stress point, if you like. Maybe 7200 would be a really good place to aim for. So we're all the way down at 7,000 at the minute. So I think there's 200 pips on offer here. And it's just a case of jumping on board at some point. And as I say, it may not be clean enough to do it today, as much as I'd like to. It may not be clean enough to do that today, but that this is a long way up. So what I'm looking for is either this pattern to break, or we can start looking at the triangle to break instead, and looking to try and hop on board. Somewhere around about the high of this triangle, and then seeing if we can get up there. Because the other thing about the triangle is that it's giving us a measured move depending on where it breaks, which leads us back into the same kind of area. So there's quite a lot to like about that. What I haven't done is a fib, and I will quickly do that. There's going to be a couple. I suspect we're looking at that one. 50%. Nah, it's not that clean. We can look at this one. That looks a little bit more likely. Nothing there. Yeah, the fibs don't really. There's one fib. If we consider that the trend or the drop started from this bar, then we could justify that. But whenever I have to kind of look at fibs and squeeze them into my philosophy, it kind of I think it starts to negate their power somewhat. So I don't think we can really rely on the fibs. But as I say, I think upside in the FTSE 100 is the sensible place to be looking, even though we are significantly lower. And I think there's lots of opportunity to hop on board, and also that the pound weakness will probably help this out. So it just depends how long that carries forward for with the FTSE. But I think the area that we currently aim for to look for an entry is somewhere around about this point here. Somewhere around about 7,000. You know, it's 7,010 at the minute. We're looking for 200 pips the upside, so still 190 on offer, even if it takes off from this point. So if not that point, do we enter at 720? Maybe. Yeah, we probably could. There's probably just about enough room at 720 to be able to take profit in an area and see if we can ride the rest of it. So that is the current plan with the FTSE 100. See if we can pick it up down here, and the first port of call. Can we break through here? That's what I want. You know, the overall picture, or the start of the journey to the 7,200, which is the overall aim, is can we break through this? And if we can break through that, then I think we've got a really nice nice trade on the go, and a really nice clean trend that we could hop on board. So can we break through that is the second question. Can we hop on board before we get to that point, take profit and see if it goes through and hop on board again? So we want to attempt to ride this up as much as possible. So that's what I'm going to be doing with the FTSE here today.
Someone's selling dollars, it would appear, at the moment, and we're getting on, I don't know about the pound so much, but the euro and the Aussie.
Let's have a look, mate. I liked the, you know, I still like the euro. I still think that there's a potential for us to trade the euro today.
Okay, let me have a look. I mean, I'm never going to dismiss it, but the fact that we've got this uncertainty is a little bit interesting for me. All right, this is the pound, and you can see the pound's not really going anywhere too much. But you have a look at the euro. It's going well. If you have a look at the Aussie, it's going better. So I'm not exactly sure what that's saying at the moment, except that weak pound. I'm seeing weak pound, certainly against the dollar.
Gosh,
that looks like against everything else. Oh, yeah,
well, do you know what? Weak pound, would it be worth having a look at the pound Aussie for us today?
Well, it would. It's probably gone as well at the moment.
Tricky, isn't it? Because we know why the pound's weak, but no idea why the Aussie might be strong.
Not off the top of my head. I don't think anything happened over the weekend that would suggest that. I don't know if we've had news on Friday. Do we have any news on Friday? I don't know. I didn't look at news on Friday because I don't. Not sure. Pretty simple. I'll just have a look now.
Yeah.
On the 12th. The RBA had a little bit of a financial stability review. I suppose that's interesting. It's only registered as medium impact news, but I don't know what was said there. I don't know that that's probably the reason. Let me speculate and say precious metals or resources are having a good day, and that's probably why the Aussie is. If that's the case, you'll probably see the Kiwi doing pretty much similar things. Don't know that I can actually pull that up at the moment. Let's have a look. Kiwi. I mean, they tend to run together anyway.
Yeah, which is why that trade I've got with Aussie Kiwi is a little bit questionable for me. I'm wondering whether that actually is really something I want to be in or not.
Yeah, Kiwi's going with it. CAD, US dollar CAD. Let me get rid of all this stuff. Okay, the CAD's not going with the rest. Interesting.
You know what? I've taken that Aussie Kiwi off. Wasn't too far away from entry, and I just see that there is some strong Aussie, and I'm not too sure about that particular move right now.
Yeah, some very strong Aussie at the moment. And it is
So anybody that's entered that, I've taken it off, and actually, you've literally got very, very little loss on that, and it's kind of worth it. If it doesn't settle down, if it settles down, then you can always put it back on again. But I quite like the thought that that we're not having to worry about the Aussie versus the Kiwi.
Yeah, look, I'm actually liking what I'm seeing here. If there is no particular reason for this to be happening, that's good. And the reason I say that is it does give me the opportunity to trade this short off the top here. Now, going back to what I said, this is one of your evening stars.
Yes.
Yeah.
A very strong one, yeah.
And a lower high here does get me interested. So yeah, this is what I'm watching. Look, but it's powering on. There's no doubt about that. Wonder why. As I said, there may be something happening with some precious metals or some commodities that will.
I should have put the news on, shouldn't I? Where is my? Do we just switch the news on in the background?
Sure.
Okay, give me 2 shakes. We'll be back. Just going to go and get my other thing.
I'm just having a fish around, guys, and the reason I'm having a fish around is I want to have a look at comparative markets as to why this might be moving as it is. I'm not seeing anything particularly. Yeah, gold's going, so it is. I think it's commodities and probably precious metals. The Aussie tends to go with those because we do have so many of them here, of course, in terms of resources. So gold is on the rise, and we've been looking for this, have we not? 1202 was the level we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, and it came off it, went there, came off it, and here would have been your beautiful entries if you could have found. I don't trade gold, so it's not on my want list or watch list. But yeah, anything down here, if you manage to get in, happy days for you. That was the level we spoke of, 1202 right here, and it's smashed through it now. So very, very interesting. Tradability wise, let's have a look at Aussie yen. Yeah, look, I'm really tempted to get in under here, but I won't. And the reason I won't is, as I said before, it's impossible to trade through this level without profit in the bank. And I also see these pivots as very magnetic today. Now, what I would be considering is if price gets to this level, then look for reversal and trade off that level short. So that's going to be the same with the Aussie. It's going to be the same with Aussie yen. And I don't know about Aussie Kiwi. I've just added Aussie Kiwi to my watch list for the first time. I've never traded Aussie Kiwi, but I'm going to continue to monitor that, see if there's anything interesting that does come to the fore. So early trading, we're seeing the Aussie take off. We're seeing the pound neutral. We're seeing the euro strengthening pretty much at the same time as the Aussie. So again, the question or the answer that I'm getting when I ask myself the question, what's going on, is weak pound. So if you have got the pound lined up against something else, let's take a quick look at Aussie pound, as Ash suggested. Pound Aussie, where is it? What am I supposed to do? Type in something A. No, that doesn't work for me. It's got to be here. I just can't see it. There it is. Pound Aussie. Righto, let's find a chart. Let's load a template. And I think you'll find it's already taken off, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it's starting, isn't it? Again,
I've just put the news on. Sorry, mate. I was just putting the news in the background. Maybe it's just because there's a bit of bullish sentiment.
Yeah, why is the pound not going with it if it's against the dollar? Is interesting. Euro's going, Aussie's going. I didn't have a look at the Kiwi, or did I? Kiwi's going. Everything's going except the pound.
Well, the pound's got Brexit issues. There's reports right now that Labour are after this customs union. There's still this backstop issue in Ireland. Greatest trading opportunity: Brexit, Germany, or Italy. Oh, that's just a little. Yeah, it just looks like there's just some issues out there for the pound, and that's probably going to put pay to any decent moves with the pound.
Yeah, look, if I had anything here to trade with in terms of a level, then I'd be happy to trade pound Aussie short, I think. But there's nothing there. It's very much a support level. The gap has all but closed, but not. Yeah, it's too hard for me to jump in here. I just don't have the right levels I need. The euro, well, look, I hope that goes to heaven because I'm still in that trade, but I don't see any opportunities here right now. This may be the earliest Aussie short, and when you look at that chart, you're thinking Aussie short. Well, you're really not thinking short at the moment, are you? You're thinking, wow, look at that. But
so with the euro, just sorry, mate, just back to the euro. That 4-hour bar that we both saw, is that does that not still have the validity that we would give it?
Look, certainly it does. And as I said before, I totally see that. And if I wasn't in the trade that I'm in already, I'd probably be a little more interested than I currently am.
Yeah.
But also, it's the first candle of the UK session that we're watching.
Yeah.
History tells me that I won't give it a figure, but a good majority of the time, that candle has a retracement attached to it in the next couple.
Yeah.
And that's where I'd be starting to get interested. Not the first one, but the second opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think it's an excellent candle for bouncing back towards the weekly pivot. This one here. So it's to me, potential is find the resistance, bounce off it, then I can start looking for a long if I'm interested.
Yeah.
But this is what I call the shot over the bow. It's a warning signal that something is about to happen. If this is the move, then this is the move. There's not a lot I can do about that because we had a gap. We had an untested daily pivot, which again tells me that when price hits the untested daily pivot, it reacts off it. And if it does, happy days, there'll be an opportunity to get long. If it doesn't, then I've still got the trade that I'm in. So I'm not in a position where I really have to jump in here. But again, not that I would, because I think it's a far safer wait here and see what happens with the second candle. Yeah.
No, I think that's fair as well.
You can completely miss it, of course, and that does happen, making that candle very, very good in the long term. But it's the wrong time of day, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If I'd seen this maybe even this morning, or halfway through this session, or maybe even an hour into this session, then I'd be very interested in trading that. But to me, it's the wrong time of day. The market needs to make a statement first. We've got to remember that candle happened as pretty much, well, it's the second last candle of the week. And we've had a whole lot of stuff happen over the weekend that could change the dynamics of that candle.
Yeah.
And I think, that's where I'm at. That's where my head's at. My head's telling me, yes, this looks fantastic, but there's a whole lot happened over the weekend that's caused this gap to start with, and we need to sort that out.
I've just a quick update on the potential reason for the euro bounce this morning is Draghi over the weekend said that the greatest issue that we now face is the repricing of global assets as to kind of paraphrase it, as central banks raise interest rates, almost giving a hint that they're next.
Yep. Okay.
So that's that seems to be a potential reason for some euro upside here.
And then you've got the president of the United States saying that the central bank, or the Fed, if you like, has overstepped the mark and gone too far.
Yes, he has. Yeah, because for him, he has been in office for possibly one of the greatest rallies that we've seen in many a long year. So for him, it's not great, is it, that all of a sudden he's also now the president that is going to be sat over what could potentially be the greatest crash as well. Well, not the greatest crash, but certainly a significant one. I think in his arrogance, he was probably hoping that that there would be no risk to downside while he was in office. But we know markets don't work like that, and I think that's the reason that he's probably come out and said what he has against the central bank. And I think he was even at one point saying he knows the market, or he knows how money works better than the central bank, and they're effectively they're idiots. So he's back at it again, isn't he?
Well, it also affects his terms of trade. See, that doesn't do him any favors in a trade war either. So that's probably
that's right.
Coming from as well.
That's right. Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah, so it's not great times for him, probably.
No, there's reasons why he's unhappy, and sexual harassment and all those sorts of things pale into significance into where he's at the moment. But it'll all play out in the end. I think a good discussion topic this week is going to be watching the equity markets and exactly see what goes on there. Are we on the precipice? Is this the beginning of the big correction? All of those questions to be answered.
Yeah.
And I think probably by the end of the week we'll get a fair idea as to what the answer to that question is, which is interesting. Because we could be on a very interesting point of time. I would suggest that a good exercise, and I wish I had time to do this overnight, and I don't because I'm just crazy busy doing other stuff, is to go back and have a look at 2008 and see what the market did at that time and how it was behaving prior to that big move. So if I do find time, I'll actually do that tomorrow during the day and see if I can give you some sort of parallels on that. But I think it's a good exercise to do around about this point in time.
Yeah. We got half-hour bars closing in a few minutes' time here. You can have a look actually first. I'll tell you something about the FTSE in a moment. But why don't you do your thing first, and then we'll get to the FTSE 100 and see what's happened here.
All right. Well, that bar there is useless to me. It's not telling me one thing or the other unless it closes below the daily pivot. Then it's telling me something. We might come back to that very, very quickly. Cable, there's no way I'm going to trade from that area. This bar is not as I would like to see it either. If this was a big reversal bar, then that would be interesting. But big is the operative word here. In context, it is a big candle, so it's not tradable either. But I'll be looking at the next one with a lot of interest. Pound yen has slipped through support, so I'm not interested there either until it pulls back. This one I'm really interested in, Aussie yen. I think this is a great opportunity to get short this cross, but it's just at the wrong level. And I want to see it get up to here, as I said before. So I think this is the one I'm really keen on today. If it can get to this area, I'll be looking to short it. Euro yen, that's the 4-hour chart. We need to look at the 30-minute chart. It's all over the place like a dog's breakfast, so we won't be looking at that. You can see two dojis in 4 candles, and the fourth of them is a very, very big low test bar, so nothing there for me. Aussie Kiwi, have added this to the repertoire. You'll be interested to know, Ash.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I am seeing this range, or as a ranging pair, I am getting interested in it now. So it's about time I put it on board. That's an interesting bar that has failed to close above this trend line. Let me take a look at that. Yeah, I think I need to know a bit more about the cross and how it moves on a 30-minute chart before I start jumping in here.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, that's the other reason that I kind of got a little bit weary of it, because I know it can be a really rangy cross, and I'm trading it by trend, and same as you, I don't really know how this one moves. So that's another reason that I thought might be worth coming away from that.
Yeah, at the moment, that's a bit of a mess right in there. So nothing there for me. So no, I don't have any trades at the moment, mate. But yeah, really keen on Aussie yen if it can set up for us.
Okay, well let's have a quick look at the FTSE. FTSE 100, you know, it's got a small range within the larger range here, and that small range, it did close above it. To be fair, on the half-hour charts here, but it's struggled since then. So it is just now starting to move back into negative territory. Certainly looks, you know, as you said earlier on, that first half hour was no great barometer for continued moves straight away, and the first half hour has well and truly been retraced. So we can't do anything until it gets back above this 7,000 level. Currently it's at 69.94. I guess maybe a good thing about that is that that if things start to close down here, then we're much more likely to see some bullish price action, which might take us above. But it's not looking too hot at this particular stage to try and take any trades, and all it did was just get to that daily pivot and bounce straight off it, just refuse the daily pivot, and it's come straight back down again. So there is reasons at this point to continue the negativity, and that's exactly what is happening. So
yeah, today's a classic example of why I don't like to trade the first bar.
Yeah,
classic example.
Yeah, really good advice there.
I'll tell you what, if that looked like that at the close of this candle, is that the 30-minute on the right hand side?
This is the 30-minute, yeah, on the right hand side. Let me give you the charts back. Yeah.
No, don't need to take it back. But if it closes like that, I'm going to put a 5-cent piece on that one. I think that'd be a decent trade, and I don't trade it, but
what above?
Suits me. No, above the current bar.
Above the current bar, you'd go long here.
Yeah, which is kind of where I thought you were looking. That was your level around about.
Yes, it is actually. Yeah, just a shade higher. But yeah, I mean it's. I'm about a pip up, but that pip up is because of this particular area here. But yeah, absolutely, that is the area that I'd be looking for. Obviously, I'd be mining in to the lower term timeframes, because that's my methodology. But we'd be looking at exactly the same area. So yeah, I suppose if it shuts down here by 9 o'clock, then maybe we start to see that start to move into positive territory after that. But right now, there is a whole bunch of nothing that can be done here.
Yeah, I'll trade that if it looks like that at the top of the hour.
Great. Great. That could be of interest then. So we have got yeah, the Aussie CAD. Aussie CAD I kind of liked, and that has really picked up, isn't it? Aussie CADs, you know, back to this one. This is the one that I was saying to about the trend line. Really nice bounce off that trend line.
Yeah,
that's shifted its way forward. What were the other ones? We got the euro just being slightly held up, isn't it? That Aussie CAD. I wish I'd. I'm going to make some notes on this one, even though I've not had the chance to trade it. I mean, it's a difficult one to trade because we've had no real test of. Oh, there was a test. Oh, there was a test. What time was that? Ah, that was just before we came on. Yeah. Look at this. This is really interesting. This this particular area here was the area that
right. Yep.
yeah, that it
Sorry,
needed
I couldn't see chat.
to that area there was the area that that it needs to break through. And it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you know, when we're kind of looking at some of these, we've got questions about, you know, which time frame to enter on, you know, which time frame we actually looking to enter on. But this one we did get a nice 4 hour this is a 4 hour chart here. Nice 4 hour trend to the upside, a decent looking bar here to look for. Then when we kind of mine in, we've got this this hourly range here, very tight at the lower end, but there's a little hourly range here. And now if I take this this lower trend line away, then we've got a little pattern here as well. So similar to the similar to what we saw with the FTSE, with a little little triangle pattern going on. But the key with this one, the measured move looks like it's been kind of obliterated now as well. There we go. The key with this one was the 15, because the 15 actually gave us a breakout and a back test, and then a bar.
Yeah, gorgeous.
To try and trade. So as I say, it can be a little tricky to kind of sometimes to know which time frame that you're going to flip to get your entry. You know, especially if you trade the way I do, which I look at the bigger picture and then I look at detail. So it's a little bit tricky to sometimes ascertain where you're going to go with that detail. You know, how far you're going to go with that detail, because sometimes it's on an hourly, sometimes it's on a 5, sometimes it's on a 15. But you know, when the big picture states something, that's when that's when I'm starting to mine in. But it does make it kind of tricky to watch all these charts. To be fair,
I'm going to say it makes it very, very difficult to drill down into more than 1 or 2 charts.
Yeah,
or 1 or 2, you know, pairs or whatever you're trading.
Yeah,
very, very difficult to monitor all those things.
Yeah,
very difficult. And you can go nuts doing it. You know, you
Yeah.
go nuts trying.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we've ended up with anyway. We've ended up with a market which has given us a setup, but a very, very difficult one to trade. And I don't really have too much more than that really right now. So the FTSE, I'm going to bring us back to the FTSE now, has absolutely tanked. So we didn't really have anything to do here. There was literally nothing on for us, because the hourly pattern that we've got is this one. That's our hourly pattern. Maybe even we could say slightly tighter than that within the pattern. So we got this big pattern going on here, and then a little kind of triangle going on down here, and it looked like it, you know, if that had gone through and started to hold, just like we just saw with the Aussie CAD, then we can start looking for trades. But you know, mining into this one, you look at the 30-minute chart, and it came up, gave us, you know, we can't call that a shooting star because of where it is, but it certainly is expressing some weakness. We look at the 15. The 15 gave us this bar, but look at this second bar. So we haven't really got any confirmation at this point. Nice trend to the upside starting. It looked like hold above the 15-minute trend line, and then an absolute complete rejection and failure. So the moves now to the upside, in my opinion, would be, you know, if I had orders in the market, let's say above this bar, they'd be completely off until I see some calming down. So I know we were talking about the 30-minute chart maybe going above that one, but just because of where this exists, it just looks it's starting to look kind of dangerous now. You know, the first hour of the market usually gives us a bit of a barometer for the day. Which I'm going to bring up in a second as well, something else. And then when we bring up the news, that there's nothing here which would suggest that it's going to have the ability to turn that around. So I think all trades in the FTSE 100 would be off the table this morning.
That candle on the 30-minute chart now is looking a little bit large to trade as well.
Right.
That would be turning my mind, but yeah, I'll still have a look at it.
So, quote of the day, mate. Should we have a look at that?
Quote of the day, yeah, sure. Let's do that. Now, this guy I've never heard of, which is kind of a little bit against my grain. But when I read the quote, I thought, look, you know what? I so much agree with that I'm going to have to use it anyway. So this is a guy called Ivan Biagi. Let me apologize to Ivan if I've mispronounced his name, but it actually looks like a compound structured name to me. I'm not sure if that's his name, but there you go. The quote is this: when you learn to let go of the need to be right, being wrong gradually lose its power to disturb you.
Oh, yeah, I like that too.
When you learn to let go of the need to be right, being wrong gradually loses its power to disturb you. That's so true. And I don't know that it's very, very easy to get over, because we, especially as a male, because, and this was said to me when I first started trading, and my wife, we actually did our first course together. And it was said to me that my wife would be a far better trader than I. And I think probably that's true. She would have been, but she went in a different direction. She's still with me, mind you, not that different direction, yeah. But she doesn't trade. She leaves it up to me, you see. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I struggle with, because I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to admit that I was wrong in any way, shape, or form. And I mean that from not just a win-loss point of view, but each trade you go into, you so want that to be correct, or your analysis to be right, or your timing into the market to be right, or your trade management to be right, or your risk management to be right. You want all of those things to combine and be 100% spot on, because then you've nailed it. You've got the key to the gold mine. You're absolutely on top of everything. Let me tell you, that probably will never happen to you, where you have that utopian moment that you've got everything, all the ducks on the pond are lining up. They might do so for a couple of trades in a row, or 3 trades in a row, or even 2 months in a row. It might just think, oh man, I've really nailed this thing, and I can't do anything wrong. And that can be true short term, but it's not true long term. So you need to accept that you will be wrong.
Yeah.
Your analysis can be as informed and experienced and spot on for 99% of the time, but there's always going to be that. In fact, you can't get 99%. I pride myself on being a reasonable analyst rather, on euro dollar. But if I'm hitting 75% of the time and my analysis is right, and what I mean by analysis being right is eventually what you're seeing in the market for that day or that week comes to pass. But there are many, many times, I would estimate, around about 25% of the time, we're completely wrong, just completely and absolutely wrong. And the challenge with that is just to let it go and say, okay, I was wrong. It's simple as that. It's not that hard to get out of your mouth. It's only 5 letters. WRONG. It's not the hardest word to pronounce or even to learn in the English language, but it is probably one of the hardest as a male to accept that simply what you was not what happened. Yeah. And WRONG. Learn the word, put it up in front of your monitor if you like, but it's the one thing. One single word that can probably save you a whole lot of money, because if you recognize when you're wrong, even mid-trade, if you recognize when you're wrong and get out of that trade, it can save you a whole lot of pain down the track.
Yeah.
So, and that's where it says the second half of the quote, you gradually lose its power to disturb you. So once you accept that you can be wrong, and will be wrong, and are wrong, it loses its power over you. And that's very, very true. So I thank you, Mr. Ivan Biaggi, whomever you may be. I think your quote is absolutely spot on the money.
Yeah, it's a great quote, mate. I really like that as well, actually. Because yeah, the acceptance to be wrong is it can actually lead to quite a lot of the mistakes, can't it? I mean, the first aspect is the emotional the emotional aspect of trading, because trading does eat you up at in the early stages, while you're kind of consumed with those personal things, because it can make you really angry. When you're starting out. I mean, I've kind of I've hit a few desks in my time, but and the odd wall very gently as well. I wasn't stupid enough to bash my hands up, but it can be a very frustrating industry. But I think the other aspect of that of the being wrong is when you stay in a trade beyond the point where you initially decided you should have got out. Like, what you're talking about cutting a trade maybe short when it doesn't quite do what you want it to do. Is one aspect of it, because you can actually close a trade before it hits stop if it doesn't quite start to shape up the way you want it. But the other thing that you would do is obviously just let it go to your stop, which is fine too. And actually, more often than not, it's better to do that, because trades can turn around just when you least expect it. But the main thing of that is moving a stop. Moving a stop, and not being happy with the fact that maybe it's just time to get out and go again. Start again. And also, I think because it is, there's an element of it that's a bit like being a cricketer or being a surfer, where you're really waiting for that ideal moment. So when you miss that first ideal moment, or the ideal moment isn't the ideal moment, and you enter the market in the incorrect way, then it's hard to kind of to sit there and effectively move away from it. Because the temptation is that you just want to get straight back in. I was wrong that time, but let's recover the money, or do whatever it is that you attempt to do at that point. But yeah, I really like that quote. I think it's a really good quote, really, really strong, powerful quote, that. And I completely concur with it.
Yep, absolutely. I think with trading, or in your management inside a trade, you need to work that out before you go into the trade. As always, you need to have an "I'm wrong" point, and once you hit that "I'm wrong" point, that's where you get out for me. That can be judged emotionally as well, because if you're long, say, and you've got this level in mind where you are wrong, you need to act on that. And it's very, very easy to say, I'll give it one chance, and it might bounce off that, and I'll be okay. You've got to be so disciplined, if you've chosen a level, to actually get out of that, because the difference is you've pre-programmed that level into your trade management and your risk management. And once it's gone beyond that level, you're actually in a state of hope rather than a state of calculation. So you're sitting there hoping, rather than being a cold, unbiased, unemotional level that you see as being the wrong point. And that, I think, is a good gauge. If you're sitting there hoping, potentially you're in the wrong position.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Well,
yeah, I can't remember too many hot times where I've sat there and hoped and actually got out of trouble. I probably have, but they don't stick in my mind like the ones where I was hoping it and didn't get out of trouble.
No. This is the thing. And I have to say, trading intraday is the greatest challenge is the being right or being wrong, because the being right can be such small margin. You know, the margins are accentuated. They're accentuated.
Yeah.
They're large on any market. But let's say that you're in a 4 hour. You're looking for a 4 hour setup. The chance that you've got time to get out of a bad trade on a 4 hour setup is a lot greater, obviously, than a setup on a 5 or 15 minute chart. You know, they just don't happen. When you're wrong, you are wrong. With a 4 hour, when you're wrong, you've probably got a chance to kind of correct your
Yeah,
mistake.
that's true.
Which is probably again why swing trading tends to make more money. You know, obviously people think that if you're on a shorter term time frame, you've got a greater chance to make more money. But there are sort of like, you know, other aspects to that which kind of you know, put that to pay a little bit, because and it is things like that, isn't it? It's the fact that you can be wrong with a 4 hour chart and still change your mind. You know, what is it you're looking for?
You've got time to analyze, whereas
Yeah,
with a 5, 15, 30-minute chart, very, very difficult to correct a mistake at that point.
yeah, absolutely.
Because your emotion will creep. You know, as disciplined as you may be emotionally, it's going to play a part.
Yes,
you can guarantee it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, and it's tricky. I mean, you know, but then I suppose the other thing with that is that the 4 hour can actually play its own challenges, because sometimes you will get out of a trade early because it hasn't gone quick enough. You know, hasn't gone where you want it to have done quick enough.
Yeah.
So you end up kind of closing out. So, you know, both of them have challenges, but I suspect if you are going to be able to master either, I think the 4 hour, you know, all the swing trading, I should say, is potentially probably a better way for. I mean, it's certainly a better way for beginners to go. I mean, they should really probably be looking at just daily charts, but it's probably a better way to trade, to make some decent money, you know, in the early days, and from there on. You know, this is why you know, people like Julian, who is a very, very experienced and long-term trader, is trading the 4 hour chart. You know, he knows that there's plenty of money in a 4 hour chart, so why bother putting the stress on yourself to trade these shorter term time frames, because they can be very, very stressful. The one thing I like about short-term time frames is that you learn a lot quicker, because
if you're prepared to, yes.
If you're prepared to, yeah. And I kind of like that, you know. Now we haven't got long before the yeah, another great quote anyway, mate. Just incidentally, tomorrow, what's the deal tomorrow? I'm flying tonight.
I think we're having the day off, aren't we?
Yeah, okay, great.
Decided?
Now the other thing is, while I'm in Singapore, I think starting the show is going to be tricky because I won't have a secondary screen. I will have one, but I won't have two. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to be able to run it. So are you going to be able to be the trigger man?
Well, I can't see why. If those instructions are right, then yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Why not? Well, we'll give it a shot on Wednesday anyway.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. Now the only thing I need to figure out on Wednesday is there's a pretty packed diary for me when I get out there. I think we're okay with that. Yeah, Wednesday, so we'll be finished by 4. Yeah, we should be good. Okay, mate. Well, that's perfect. Right, so we should talk about these charts, because they've got very, very interesting in the way that they are pretty volatile right now. I don't know if you want to discuss the euro just yet, but let me quickly show you what's going on with the FTSE.
Sure.
FTSE 100. Look at this bar now.
Yeah, changed now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's completely changed. So we've got 5 minutes before the close of this particular bar, and this is interesting because actually on the half hour trend, if you like, is hasn't really started yet. You know, we've kind of got lower low, lower high, lower low, equal. So we're just kind of like hitting a bit of a range here. But we have broken through this trend line. Now this bar starts to become quite interesting because it is a hammer. It would qualify just about. It's not dipped that far away from this price action, but it is just slightly lower. So this does qualify for a hammer. Now with I know the bar's large, But would this be something that of interest to you when it just comes down to what's happened with the price action?
Show me the hourly chart, mate.
This is the hourly over here. So
Oh,
the
okay.
sorry, no, it's not. That's a 15. That's a 15. The hourly. Hourly's here.
You see, what I don't like is the high test, low test situation, and I'm seeing it on both charts.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing indecision in both candles.
Yeah.
So that doesn't fill me with a lot of excitement.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I was looking for confirmation above this 7,600, and I kind of agree with you. My issue is that if I was to get if this is going to go higher, which is the area I'd be looking for, I'm probably not going to get a setup which is that attractive to take because of all this indecision. The way that the price action's going, it's not very settled. Which means that when we kind of look at something like this this Aussie CAD, and just to bring it back to this Aussie CAD, what I like about this Aussie CAD on a 15-minute chart is that we have a pretty nice area, fairly well defined there. Maybe we're even looking at something like that, as part of the pattern. But either way, when it comes back, it tests really nicely, and we get an actual genuine breakout of an area and a setup after a genuine breakout of an area. Whereas with this one, back to the FTSE again, the area hasn't really been broken. This is the fifth, even on a 15-minute chart, the area hasn't really been broken and held. So I'm with you. I think the hourly and the half hourly are expressing it in a different way. But with this one now, for me, I probably need to see it above that point before I trade it.
Yep. If you take your trend line back down, I'll give you a little insight as to what. No, sorry, the resistance trend line.
Down as in take it
to
away?
Where it was. No, to where it was.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's giving me an indication that the break of that line is potentially false.
Yeah.
Because we've snuck back below it and we're retesting it with a high test bar, if you like. So that to me is getting to a bearish situation.
Yeah.
But it's far from absolutely definitive in my book. And
it's not clear, is it?
You see.
No. It's not clear. So I agree with you on that. Euro. So let's have a quick look at. So we've got a minute left, mate. So let me pass you the screen. You got a half hour pass coming on. So let's see what you got.
Yep, we'll take a quick squiz. Okay, I was just having a look at them myself, coming off the 4. I was having a look at 4-hour charts earlier. This one is Aussie yen, and that's the one I'm keen on. But at this point in time, I still want to see it up here. And if I do, that's where I'll start to look for shorts. If it gets to this level, better still, because it's then going to match these highs. If I get back underneath here, then that becomes a really good trade off that resistance trend line. Now I'm keen to trade anything against the yen short. Pound yen is certainly in that category, but it's at a ridiculously inopportune level, if you like, because we've got this gap here. We've got an untested bunch of pivots above us. It's just impossible for me to go short here. Impossible. It's really a case of have to wait for the pullback. So I won't be interested in that. The Aussie's still interesting to me. That's the 4-hour chart we're looking at. Let's come back to the 30. The reason it's interesting for me is because we're very early in this potential range on the 4-hour chart. The 30-minute chart is still pretty early as well, but you can see we've got some nice equal highs and lows here. And we've got a little intraday consolidation area as well. So I'm very keen to see this bounce off this level. We've already had a false out or a false break of that level. I was looking for a lower high based on this high. These candles have really put a little bit of a spanner in the works because I don't see a high here that is tradable. So there's no reversal bar here if this was to be the high. If we get a candle that breaks through here and doesn't take out this high, yet is a nice reversal bar, then there's probably a trade there for me. So I'll be watching that area. But if this high gets taken out, everything changes. I can't trade then for a little bit. So I'm still looking for that reversal off the top here, and it'll probably have to go through the top, maybe match this high, and then give me the reversal, and then I'll look to trade it. Cable, getting towards the area where I wanted to see it, and that is up around that weekly pivot area. And that's interesting because it has reversed polarity since the opening of the session. And it does look intent now on closing this gap, and that's great. I'd like to see that happen. And then I'll look for something that suggests there's downside. Perhaps that even comes off the daily pivot. So I'm watching both areas. If I get a nice reversal bar here, I'll look to trade it, but it can certainly come back to this level as well. And if it did, same scenario, I'll be looking for the reversal. But let's go to the euro.
Do you know what? Just quickly with cable.
Yeah.
I find the interesting thing about that this is that it's almost turning into a bear flag at this moment in time, isn't it? You look
it is, yeah.
Not so easy to see on the 4 hour, but that's where it is. It's the actual bear flag's on the 4 hour, but you have to draw the flag on the hourly to get or the half hourly is fine to get your clean levels in. But then you switch that to a 4 hour, and then you get what effectively is a bear flag with a gap. So that is an interesting looking chart there. Very, very interesting.
Good place to trade it from here if it sets up for me.
Yeah. That would suggest some downside right into. It looks to me pretty much back to the lows of October, the start of October. Looks like that bear flag could lead us all the way back down there again if this was to play out.
Oh, you're looking at the flag itself, right?
Yeah, well, and the pole, yeah, so the pole and the flag, yeah. Oh, yeah, so that right to the top, right to the high, because that's the pole is from the high of the actual whole move. There, yeah, that's the high. So that, then if you bring that down and then put it at the top end of the top end of the flag, there, yeah, that leads us all the way back down there potentially.
Yep. This looks interesting, doesn't it?
It does, because actually that could still be a part of that flag if it's there in a couple more bars, couldn't it? Because that would lead us all the way back up to that weekly pivot, which is going to be the place that people are going to be looking for a short,
including myself,
and myself if I'm not traveling to the airport.
Yeah. Oh, how long have you got before you're off?
A few hours. Got a few hours. Still got to pack.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So the euro is already interesting with that reversal bar there, but that one's just a little bit too small for me to trade. Not really. 10 pips. I'd like to see the hourly here, though. The hourly will be interesting. That could even set up as a double cross. We'll have a look at that. No, it won't. See, it closed below the daily pivot. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I need to stay out of this for the moment because I can see it's a little bit trappy. That's an interesting candle though that failed to close above the daily pivot after trying. So it's a false attempt to break it. I'd like to see a retest of this line that's also been broken, but I really wanted to see this close or a close above the daily pivot. Then a breakdown that gets me interested in the long. This is far from clear. Far from clear. I'm going to stay out for now, mate.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just gonna wait.
yeah. What are we looking at, the euro?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you know what I've got with the euro? I am looking at this and I am seeing that this is likely to come and see that level. Now,
Yeah.
I wanted to see this level and hold, and if it holds, and when I say hold, I think well, how it depends on what time it gets down here, but I'm really looking at the hourly. I think this hourly chart here is in danger because it's a spinning top. There's going to be orders in both directions with this one. So if that lower line, that lower area of the spinning top, which is in conjunction with this trend line, is attacked and it holds, that's going to give a lot more credence to the fact that that we're going to attempt to then to try and get through the top end of that break. So I think over the next hour, I wouldn't be trading this and for at least another 53 minutes. So if it comes down here and holds over the next 4 sessions on the 15-minute chart, then I'm quite happy to take the euro long, but not until I see that.
Yep. Similar. Very, very similar scenario. I'm not ready yet to do that. Still hanging on to Aussie yen. I think that's my best one of the day if it does set up, but it's a fair way from doing that as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at this stage, not a thing, but interesting for later in the day, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, let's come back. Not tomorrow, but we will come back on Wednesday and see what's shaped up, see what we got in, see what's starting to move at that particular point. But right now,
All right,
have a
travel
great rest
well,
of the
mate.
day. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you in a couple of days, and yeah, we'll just hope that that we can get things up and running. But if you have any issues and I'm not flying, then let me know.
Yeah, cool. No worries.
All right,
Yeah, we'll see if we can get James sorted and get this controller and things worked out as well.
okay, mate. Okay, sounds good. Have a great rest of the day, mate, and nice day tomorrow. And I'll speak to you in a day or so. Everybody else, thanks very much for listening, and see you on Wednesday.
Bye, guys.